Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's virtual event, Demystifying Workday with Microsoft Teams for IT Pros. My name is Jill, and I'll be your moderator today. We're broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on the behalf of Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the Q&A panel. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. Attendees may access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered by email within 5 to 7 days. If you have any questions for our presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. We do have team members standing by to answer your questions throughout and at the end of the session. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Kicking us off today from Microsoft, we have Michał Słowikowski, Senior Customer Engineer. Michał, over to you.
For the introduction. My name is Michał Słowikowski, and I'm Senior Customer Engineer working here in Microsoft, helping our customers to integrate Microsoft Teams with third-party applications like Workday. Today, we'll be talking about integration between those two products. So let's start from the idea why we need this integration in the first place. If we think about how our users in our organizations are working, in the hybrid mode, they are looking for information faster. They want to perform self-service tasks, or they would like to go and collaborate with other users. Teams are becoming like this natural space for doing that. And this is also the reason why Workday prepared this integration in the first place, as well as adding new features with further releases. So what is currently available inside this Workday for Teams integration? First of all, users have access to really nice looking and fully informative Workday dashboards, where they can easily access quick information relevant to their hiring information, to their HR profile. Also, they can perform quick actions and approvals straight from Teams, which means that they can speed up the process of getting the information or process the information inside of the HR system. And the last piece of the puzzle is the Workday Assistant. So it's a conversational bot which allows users to quickly and easily get the information which lives in Workday and surface it to the user straight in Teams chat experience. But to tell a little bit more about all of those specific components, I would like to pass the mic to Johan Bosman from Workday, who will explain it a little bit deeper. Thank you.
Thank you, Michał. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Johan Bosman. I'm a Principal Product Manager here at Workday, responsible for the Workday for Microsoft Teams app. So thank you for having me on the call today. As Michał mentioned, the app is really designed around self-service, easy self-service that you can do right inside of the flow of work, right inside of Microsoft Teams without having to go into the Workday desktop app. As you can see, we've built a really fully featured app, a really fully featured enterprise app. And it's really designed to help you do the tasks that you do most commonly in Workday. We see really great usage and also retention of users over time. So once folks have a few positive experiences with the Workday app in Microsoft Teams, it can actually quite quickly become their preferred way of interacting with Workday. Ultimately, our goal is that, for a regular employee or a regular manager of a small team, they can do, 70–80% of their tasks without ever having to leave Microsoft Teams. So completely in the flow of work. We have the app, and the features that Michał just highlighted are all available in the app today. but we are continuing. We have a large team dedicated to this, building this app out. We're continuing to enhance the dashboards that are available to people. We're continuing to add more and more quick actions that you can do right within Teams. We're also, a very popular feature has been the ability to get requests routed to you in Microsoft Teams as a notification, and if you're a people manager, to also approve requests for your team right inside of Teams. Last but not least, Workday Assistant is a really top-notch chatbot. It's got really great natural language understanding. It's very smart at helping you with more than 75 of the top HR and finance tasks that you can do in Workday, and that's a really fun and enjoyable experience for employees and managers alike. They can simply chat with Workday in Teams as if they were chatting with one of their coworkers. And they can say, hey, Workday, I would like to take some time off, or hey, Workday, I'm looking for my last pay slip, or hey, Workday, I need to update my beneficiary information. They can simply ask the question in plain English or in their plain language, and we can help understand that request and guide them to the right place in Workday, or ideally have them complete that transaction right in line. Yeah, so I highly encourage you to check it out. That is kind of all I'm going to talk right now about the feature functionality of the app. What I'd like to get to is what it means for you guys as IT professionals, and we're going to cover some topics around licensing and deployment and management of the app next. If you have questions on the feature functionality, or at any point as I'm talking, please use the Q&A panel in the webinar to ask those questions, and we'll either respond to them in line or we'll cover them live at the end of the talk. All right, so let's move on to some topics of interest for IT professionals. First of all, let's start with licensing and deployment. As I mentioned, the Workday app is generally available for all Workday customers. You can find it on Microsoft App Stores. It's in the Teams App Store inside of Microsoft Teams. It has really immediate value for both employees and for people managers to help them do self-service within Microsoft Teams. And we've really tried to make this an easy thing to do. This is not something you need to hire a systems implementer for or write a 3-month project proposal for. All of the configuration on the Workday side and on the Microsoft Teams side can really be done in an afternoon. And I'm going to talk you through each of the steps that are required to get up and running in just a second. The Workday app is included in your Workday HCM subscription. So if you guys are using Workday today in your organization, you already own this. There is no additional cost. There's no additional licensing required. It's really just a matter of doing the configuration to get it up and running. Because Workday is a core system of record for HCM, by definition, it's always licensed wall to wall. If your organization uses Workday, every employee has access to Workday, every manager has access to Workday. So therefore, this is a great app to roll out into Teams because it's relevant for everybody in your organization. Everybody in your organization needs to go into Workday on a regular basis. So this is also a great app to distribute or potentially even pin in Microsoft Teams for all of your employees, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So, as I mentioned, we've really worked hard to make this easy for you guys. It should really be quick time to value. There is a little bit of collaboration required between the Workday administrator and the Teams administrator or the Microsoft 365 administrator to get this done. But really, if you guys get together for an afternoon, in person, remote, whatever you got to do, you can have this up and running. It's not a complicated process. Step one for the Workday administrator is to do a little bit of tenant configuration in Workday. So they need to opt in to the Teams integration. They need to configure a few security domains to determine who can administer the app, who the users of the app might be based on security domains in Workday. And then they need to connect to a Workday tenant of their choice. We always recommend that you first connect to a preview or implementation tenant for testing. Because you are, editing and changing data in Workday. So when you're testing, please connect to a preview or implementation tenant on the Workday side. Once you're happy with the configuration, you've had it, a chance to test out all the features and configure everything how you would like it to roll out to your people, you can then disconnect from preview and you can connect to your Workday production tenant where your actual production data lives. All of this is really a matter of a few hours work. It's not complicated. Any Workday administrator is familiar with the steps, and we have a full installation guide available that walks through all the steps both on the Workday side and on the Microsoft Teams side, which we have in the resources section at the end of the talk. The second step is for the Teams or the Microsoft 365 administrator. We do require a few Graph API permissions for the app to function, so those need to be granted during the installation process. And then also, depending on how you have your third-party applications policy configured in Microsoft Teams, you may have to allow or add Workday to that third-party application policy. Those are really the only two steps required before we can move on to feature configuration and also configuring approvals and notifications for the app. So in the Microsoft Teams app itself, any administrator can bring up the configuration panel. And in that configuration panel, you can control which of the quick actions, which of the notifications, which of the Workday Assistant responses are on or off for your users, and also a little bit of additional configuration that you can do in terms of how they behave. This is important because not all Workday customers use all of the feature functionality in Workday, and they may not want to toggle on all of the feature functionality in the Teams app. So this is where you would do that. For example, if you do not use Workday for time tracking, for example, you could simply toggle that off. It will not show up in the quick actions. It will not show up in Workday Assistant, and you can use your third-party application for time tracking. So these are really all the steps. Step 1, configuring the Workday tenant and connecting it to the Teams app. Step 2, granting the permissions and allowing the Workday app in your policy. And then step 3, configuring the app and enabling the notifications and approvals that you would like to flow into Microsoft Teams. Oh, I skipped over something. So one important thing to understand is that there's kind of 2 different ways to configure who has access to the Workday app for Teams. The first one obviously is in your hands. It's your third-party application policy or a custom permission policy for the Workday app. So that is one way by which you control who can see the Workday app and who can install the Workday app in Teams. In addition to that, the Workday administrator can use security domains in Workday to say who are administrators of the app. So typically that would be an HR or IT administrator group, and who are the end users of the app. And they can use Workday security domains to control that. So if there's a certain business unit or a certain geography where you do not want to roll out the Workday for Teams app, you can do that either through the app policy in Teams, or you can do it through a security domain in Workday. So I just wanted to highlight that, and that's a point of conversation between you as the Teams administrators and your Workday administrator on how you want to manage that and the pros and cons of each. Okay, let's talk a little bit about managing the solution. First, I wanted to highlight the Graph API permissions that the app currently requires. So you can see these here on the right. Managing Teams apps, reading all users' profiles, and signing in and reading user profiles are the Graph API permissions that you will have to grant during the initial installation of the app. This is a one-time flow, and it needs to be done before the app will start working. So there's a check built into the app to make sure that all those permissions are in place before administrators or end users can start interacting with it. As I mentioned, once the app has been successfully installed, there's a configuration panel. So if you're in the Workday security domain for administrators, at any point in time, you can open up this configuration panel in the app itself. It's available from your dashboard, or you can just type the word administration to the bot, and it'll bring up this panel for you. It's a bit longer than what I'm showing you here in the screenshot. There's quite a few more settings available, but I just wanted to give you a highlight. So as you can see, there's a little bit of app configuration you can do. You can toggle individual features on and off, and there's some additional settings you can do for how the app behaves. If you do not use Workday for any of these things, I gave the example of maybe entering time is something you do in another system. You can simply toggle that feature off and it will not appear for any end user. Any of the settings you do in this configuration panel apply to all users for the Workday app in Teams. The last thing I wanted to highlight, we see a pretty big increase in new user activation, almost a 2 to 3 fold increase for customers that choose to pin the Workday app to the Teams side rail. Obviously, it's entirely optional, but it is something worth thinking about because the Workday app is available to everybody in your organization by default, because everybody is in Workday as the core system of record. It is a really good candidate to pin to the side rail. The nice thing that pinning does is it pre-installs the app for everybody, so we can start sending notifications to people right away. And also, obviously, it appears in the left-hand sidebar, so it's much more discoverable. It's entirely up to you. You obviously, you own the real estate in that left-hand side rail. But we see a pretty significant uptick, and I think if any app, Workday is a really great candidate to be pinned to that left-hand side rail. In terms of security and compliance, we often get questions around this. Workday is a core system of record for both people and money, so for HCM and for finance. Security and compliance is really a core to everything that we do at Workday, and also that extends to this particular app. Microsoft has the app compliance program, and I'll show you which parts of that we've completed for the Workday app just now. Obviously, as an administrator and a user, you have full control over the data that is accessed, and you as the administrators also have full control over which apps appear for your users in Teams. Beyond that, we've been very careful with how we've designed the features in the app to make sure that we do not take very sensitive data that exists in Workday and leave it in the Teams message chat, for example, or that we take sensitive data out of your Active Directory and store it in Workday. We actually do not store any Teams data in Workday other than user authentication tokens. We do not take any data out of Teams messages or chats or anything like that. Literally the only bit of Teams information that we store in Workday is the token for that user to interact with Workday. We have the publisher verification and the publisher attestation completed. So those are available for you on the Microsoft documentation site. As you can see on the right here, this is what that looks like. So there's a general section that talks about the app, but there's also data information on data handling, security, compliance, privacy, identity. It's all available for you there. In addition, Workday has a very large list of third-party compliance certifications. They're all available on our website. But they also extend out to the Workday for Teams app. So we are in scope, we are included in the Workday SOC 1, 2, and 3 audits, in the ISO certification, and a whole host of other third-party compliance certifications that you can find on our website. So I really just wanted to highlight that both security and compliance has been very carefully thought about, both on the Workday side and on the Microsoft side. And you should not have any hesitation to move ahead and work with your Workday administrator to get this app up and running. And with that, I think we are at the bottom of the talk. I have a few resources I wanted to share with you before we get to Q&A. Workday has a name support model. So if you have support issues or questions, you have a few name support contacts in your organization that can contact Workday and our product team directly. But we also have some really good public resources. We have a great product demo and setup video that's available that walks through all of the steps. I mentioned earlier we have a detailed installation guide that walks through all of the steps required to get the app up and running. And then also we have a thing called Workday Community, which is where all our customers can get in touch with Workday product experts, product groups, and also other customers to get answers to questions. So those are three ways you can get support. And then obviously both your Workday and your Microsoft CSM, if you have questions or you need additional assistance, your CSM is a great resource to get in touch with, and they can help find the right person to get you the answers that you need. With that, here's a link to the Workday app on Microsoft App Source. And at this point, I'd like to take a break and have a look at the Q&A. All right, so let's see here. The first question here that I see from Jana, will you share this presentation on Workday Community? Yes, so this presentation will be sent out to all of the attendees, and we will also make a copy of the presentation available on Workday Community for playback. David asks, can the app permissions be accepted in advance for all employees, alleviating the need for this prompt? Yes, sorry, David, maybe I should have been more clear about that. That is really a one-time thing. That is, the permissions are granted by the Microsoft 365 administrator during the installation process. This is not a message that an end user will ever see. Just to clarify, the only message that an end user will ever see once they start using the Workday app, the very first time they use the Workday app, we will ask them to sign into Workday so we can know who they are. So the very first time they install the Workday app, there's a nice welcome message with a button to sign into Workday. The user can sign into Workday however they are used to doing that. So it could be with username, password, it could be through single sign-on, it could be through MFA, whatever you have configured there. They would sign into Workday, and at that point we issue that OAuth token, and they can start interacting with the Teams app. But that permission screen that I showed you is really only intended for the administrator during the installation flow. McCall, is there any questions that you wanted to jump in while I'm reading?
Yeah,
here?
so sure. So there were a few questions regarding the Teams policies regarding retaining of Teams messages. So there are a few things. So first of all, it can be controlled how long the messages, like chat messages or channel messages, are being retained in Microsoft Teams, and after that time, it could be also deleted. However, there were also some like specific question regarding just messages from Workday, and as far as I would need to double check it, and I wouldn't prefer not to put you like or put it on a spot and give you the wrong answer about it. I need to check regarding the new public announcements regarding the roadmap, but currently the state is that you can remove, like, basically you can cover your user chat boxes for the Teams messages, and it will remove those old messages under that rule, but without regard will it be from Workday or other user. Yeah, but there were also some few questions around just the Teams policy.
Great. I see another question here. The app source link, yeah, we'll include that in the show notes. No problem. You can also simply just go to the Microsoft App Source, or in Microsoft Teams itself, you can just go to the apps section in the left-hand sidebar and just type the word Workday and it'll show up for you. Can you explain more how the data flows between Workday and Microsoft Teams? Yeah, so we use the Microsoft Teams bot framework, and we have obviously the app installed into Microsoft Teams. And then we're really just making API calls into the Workday service. We use Workday Extend, which is our developer platform that has Workday APIs available. So we use Workday Extend like any other Workday customer would to make API calls into Workday to either update data in Workday or read data and show it in Microsoft Teams. With regards to retention, you know, I saw a question around GDPR and data retention in Teams. A lot of the data that we actually show in Microsoft Teams is rendered in a modal. And it's really, that modal is very short-lived. As soon as the user navigates away from that modal, none of that data is actually retained in Microsoft Teams. It's really only rendered at that time, and when you close the modal, it is gone. It's not stored or retained. The only bit that is retained in Microsoft Teams is the chat, so the conversation that Mikal was just talking about between that individual user and the Workday app itself. But even in that chat, in that message history, we are very careful in terms of what information is displayed there. For example, if I have a question around pay or my pay slip, we say, hey, it looks like you have a question around pay or your pay slip. Here's your last pay date. Here's your next pay date. If you want your full pay slip, here's the deep link to your latest pay slip in Workday. And we bring you into Workday to show that data. We're not bringing your full pay slip with all your SIN information and all that stuff into the Teams app. So we very carefully designed and thought through what Workday data is exposed into Teams but not retained, or which data can be shown in the chat history and can live there for a period of time. And are there any other questions here? Mikal, did you have any other questions you wanted to call out live?
Just reviewing them, but I think there is also the last one, but it's more on Workday side about the work human separate app or a feature that can be enabled through Workday application.
I believe that to be a separate app. That's not a feature that we have available in the app today.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for your time and attention this morning. Thank you for joining us. We will send out the recording and also the resources and links that we showed you during this call. And thank you very much for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks, Johan. Audience, I have posted a survey link in the Q&A panel. If you could please take a moment to complete that. We'd love your feedback on today's session and to hear what you enjoyed or what you'd like to see in future events. We appreciate your participation. Once again, thank you to our presenters and to our Q&A panel, and thank you, audience, for logging on and joining us today. Please stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your day.